My dad chose my stepbrother's wedding over mine, so my grandpa walked me down the aisle and I inherited his lake house. Hey everyone. 28-year-old female here, and I'm really struggling with my wedding situation. What should have been a joyous occasion has turned into a total nightmare, all thanks to some serious family drama. To help you understand how we got here, let's start at the beginning. There's a lot to unpack. I grew up as an only child in what I thought was a happy family. My early memories are filled with weekend trips with my parents, family game nights, and my dad teaching me to ride a bike. He was the kind of father who'd build tree houses and scare away monsters under my bed. He was my hero. But when I was 14, everything changed. I can still vividly remember the day my parents sat me down and told me they were getting a divorce. My mom had discovered my dad was having an affair with his coworker, Laura, who was 42 at the time. 6 months after the divorce, Dad and Laura got married. That's when I met Aaron, Laura's 25-year-old son from a previous marriage. The transition wasn't easy. Suddenly I had a stepbrother after being an only child. My dad took it upon himself to be Aaron's ideal father figure, especially since Aaron's biological father had abandoned him as a child. Initially, I admired Dad for helping a kid who needed a father. Little did I know, this would eventually cost me my own father. The changes were subtle at first, but they kept coming. Our Sunday father-daughter breakfasts slowly became family. Breakfasts centered around Aaron's baseball schedule. My dad, who used to attend all my dance recitals, started missing them for Aaron's practices or games. He even joined Aaron's team as an assistant coach, despite knowing nothing about baseball. When I was 16, my mom remarried David, a wonderful man who got a job offer in another state. They asked if I wanted to move with them, but I chose to stay, wanting to be near my dad despite everything. In hindsight, I really wish I had made a different choice. The real turning point was my final year of college. One rainy night, while driving home, I was hit by another car that ran a red light. I needed emergency surgery due to internal bleeding. Mom and David flew in right away, but my dad texted me to say he couldn't come because Aaron was having a breakdown over a breakup. I was in the hospital for 3 days and he never once showed up. After graduation, I focused on building my own life. At work, I met Mike, our new 30-year-old IT manager. We bonded over our love for hiking and classic sci-fi films. After 3 years of dating, he proposed to me on a sunrise hike at our favorite spot. It was perfect, and for the first time I felt like my life was finally coming together. We sent out invitations 6 months in advance, setting our wedding date for October 15th of this year. For weeks, I debated whether to ask Dad to walk me down the aisle. He was still my father, and I secretly hoped this could be our chance to mend things. A month before the wedding, I decided to go for it and surprise him with the request. But before I could ask, Dad called me to lunch. He seemed anxious, avoiding eye contact. Finally, he dropped the bombshell. Aaron was also getting married on October 15th, and Dad had already agreed to be his best man. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I asked Aaron why he chose the same day, and he said it was the anniversary of when he and his fiancée first met 2 years prior. I pointed out that Aaron knew our date, and our invitations had gone out months ago. Dad's reaction? He suggested I change my date, claiming my venue was more flexible than Aaron's exclusive one. I absolutely refused. Deposits were made, invitations sent, and relatives were traveling internationally. When I tried to explain, Dad accused me of being selfish and disregarding Aaron's feelings. He actually said Aaron needed him more because he never had a real father figure. When my grandfather, my mom's dad, heard about the situation, he was furious with my dad. We've always been close, especially since my parents' divorce. He immediately offered to walk me down the aisle. Then Dad made an unexpected announcement. He'd give Mike and me his vacation home as a wedding present. It's a stunning waterfront property we've always adored. Suddenly, Dad changed his mind. He called me, saying he could make both weddings work by being Aaron's best man at the ceremony and then showing up at my reception to dance with me. When I didn't agree right away, he started accusing me of destroying the family and forcing him to make a choice. But karma had other plans. It turns out Aaron hadn't asked Dad to be in his wedding 2 weeks prior. Aaron wanted his biological father to be his best man instead. Dad, in tears, called me, assuming he could just step in and walk me down the aisle as if nothing had happened. He was finally free to be fully involved in my wedding. Given Grandpa's incredible generosity, I wasn't going to deny him this moment. He stepped up when Dad stepped out. Dad completely lost it. He started yelling that my grandfather was manipulating me, that I was selling my loyalty for a house, and that I was prioritizing money over family. I hung up and blocked his number. Now his entire family is accusing me of being materialistic and callous. My stepmother, Laura, says I should be more compassionate because Dad is hurting and he's available now. Even some of my friends think I'm being too harsh and should give him another chance. But I don't think I'm wrong. This goes beyond the wedding. It's about years of being treated as Aaron's second best, of my needs and feelings being ignored in favor of his. Why should I give him this special moment when he's only coming to me because his first choice fell through? So Reddit, even if my dad is now available, am I wrong for not letting him walk me down the aisle and choosing my grandfather, who gave us a house, over my father? I'd really appreciate an independent perspective on this. Update 1. Wedding rehearsal. Chaos first. I want to thank everyone for their encouraging words and comments. Your support has made me feel much more confident in my decision. However, a lot has happened since my last post, and I have to tell you about the absolute mayhem that went down at my wedding rehearsal yesterday. The rehearsal was set for 5 p.m. at our venue, and everything was going smoothly. The ladies were practicing their steps. Mike's nephew was doing great as our ring bearer. My grandpa was rehearsing, walking me down the aisle. Then, my father unexpectedly showed up. We didn't notice him at first. He snuck into the back of the venue and watched from the sidelines. He didn't start yelling until we were in the middle of the second practice, shouting that this was all wrong and that he was my real father who had a greater right to be there than my grandfather. He rushed down the aisle, shoving past my bridesmaids. Bless him, my grandfather tried to remain composed. He protectively stepped in front of me and motioned Dad away. This only enraged Dad further. He started bringing up old family history, claiming my grandfather had never liked him and that the house offer had turned me against him. He even claimed my grandfather was trying to buy his way into the position of father of the bride. It's the worst part. Dad couldn't stand straight and his sentences were slurred, so it was clear he'd been drinking. Mike called venue security, and before they arrived, Dad tried to physically shove my grandfather away from me. Fortunately, Mike's brother stepped in and restrained him. The entire event was terrifying. My mom was recording everything in case we needed proof for a restraining order. My bridesmaids were stunned, and my flower girls were crying. As security escorted him out, Dad started yelling at me, saying I was dead to him and that I would regret putting money before blood. It was heartbreaking and humiliating at the same time. However, this is when things took a surprising turn. My stepmother, Laura, had slipped in behind Dad amidst all the confusion. After he left, she pulled me aside and asked if we could talk privately, which she revealed absolutely stunned me. Laura believes that Aaron had purposefully orchestrated this entire wedding date disaster. She handed me screenshots of 3 months' worth of chats between Aaron and his fiancée. While they had discussed several potential wedding dates, Aaron insisted on October 15th because it was my date. He boasted in his text that he was going to show Dad that he loved him more than I did. But the truly awful thing? My father knew about this. Aaron freely shared his idea with Dad in texts Laura showed me. Dad had replied that he understood Aaron's feelings and would back Aaron's decision rather than shutting it down. Knowing that I would have to reschedule my date or risk losing Aaron as a part of my ceremony, Dad even assisted Aaron in booking the location. Laura was in tears as she showed me all of this. She claimed to have witnessed Dad's favoritism of Aaron for years. She always justified it by telling herself that Aaron needed more help because his biological father wasn't there. But after witnessing Dad's handling of this matter, she realized how poisonous the family dynamic had become. What I observed was only the beginning. She disclosed that Dad has been actively trying to exclude me from the family. He's been snooping around and turning down invites to family gatherings where I would be expected, claiming that I was too busy or that I didn't want to attend. He's been giving Aaron details about my life and pushing him to match my accomplishments. In fact, when I got engaged, Dad advised Aaron to pop the question to his fiancée very far away in order to avoid falling behind. Lara expressed her sincere regret for not speaking up sooner. She claimed that she is divorcing my father because she can no longer put up with his actions, particularly after witnessing him attempt to physically threaten my grandfather at the rehearsal. She has come to the realization that Dad is actively supporting Aaron's efforts to exclude me from the family. It's not merely playing favorites. Despite all this drama, I'm more sure than ever of my choice. The wedding is tomorrow. We've hired additional security to make sure Dad can't enter the venue, and my grandfather will lead me down the aisle. I declined Mike's suggestion that we postpone if I needed more time to take it all in. I refused to let our beautiful day be ruined by Dad and Aaron's games. Some of Dad's family members continue to support him, saying that family should be together and that I'm exaggerating. But after seeing those texts and witnessing Dad's inebriated outburst, I'm done feeling bad. This isn't about the house, the money, or even who walks me down the aisle anymore. It's about years of emotional abuse and manipulation that I'm finally seeing clearly. For now, I just want to concentrate on my wedding, but Lara stated she would testify if I wanted a restraining order. My grandfather, mom, stepdad, and my wonderful fiancé are all on my side. Perhaps that is all the family I require. If something noteworthy occurs after the wedding, I'll provide another update. For the big day, I need to try to get some sleep right now. Again, I want to thank everyone for their support. You have no idea how much it means. Update 2. The truth about Aaron's wedding. This is more twisted than I could have imagined. Here we are. Any reservations I had about removing my dad from my life have been completely dispelled by what I'm about to reveal. My grandfather escorted me down the aisle. Mike's vows brought everyone to tears of joy, and the additional security made sure there were no unwelcome disruptions. Everything about my wedding went flawlessly. Even our first married holiday was spent at my grandfather's lake house, which is now our official residence. However, yesterday I received a call from my cousin Amy. As Lara's niece, she went to Aaron's wedding, and what she told me completely upended everything. Remember how Dad said Aaron declined his invitation and went with his biological father? It was an outright falsehood. Amy claims that Aaron never asked Dad not to come. In reality, it was far more deliberate. 3 months before the wedding, Aaron's biological father, who had been gone all his life, unexpectedly made a reappearance. We're talking about an $80,000 celebration at a prestigious vineyard. And he felt bad for leaving Aaron as a way to make things right. He volunteered to cover the entire wedding. Dad felt intimidated when Aaron's biological father offered to cover half of Aaron's wedding expenses, which came to almost $40,000. It drove him insane that he couldn't match that degree of generosity. Dad viewed Aaron's reconnection with his biological father as competition rather than a positive development. The actual kicker. Dad decided not to attend the wedding himself. He informed Aaron that if the biological father was covering all of the costs, he would not go. In fact, he attempted to force Aaron to choose between having Dad serve as his best man and having his ideal wedding paid for. Dad yelled at Aaron when he decided to have the wedding paid for, of course. However, he made up the excuse about not being invited rather than telling me this. He believed that by playing the victim, he would win my sympathy and be able to lead me down the aisle. He was attempting to get into mine by using Aaron's wedding as leverage. Things got worse. Videos from Aaron's wedding reception that Amy showed Dad watching from the parking lot in the background. He watched the celebration through the windows of the venue for hours while he sat in his car. No one wanted to cause a commotion by alerting security, but a few attendees observed and felt uneasy. What Dad has been telling everyone about my grandfather's gift is the most annoying thing. He is circulating allegations among the family that I looked around for a partner and offered my grandfather's house to the person who showed the greatest interest in me. He's telling people that I deceived my grandfather into giving up his land and that he's getting old. On social media, some family members have started making crude remarks about our wedding pictures since they even think he's real. A relative wrote, "It's sad how some people trade family loyalty for material gain." Another said, I hope the house was worth losing your father over." I was so furious. I drove to Dad's house, wanting to tell him everything I knew. Bad idea. Rather than offering an apology or even acknowledging it, he attempted to defend his behavior. He said that by inventing the tale of Aaron not inviting him, he was testing my loyalty. He said that regardless of the house gift, I would have. Demanded that he escort me down the aisle if I truly loved him. Then, because Aaron is also related, he had the gall to insist that Aaron receive a portion of my grandfather's present because it's not fair that Aaron receives nothing and I receive such a great present. He genuinely proposed that we sell the lake house and divide the proceeds. When I declined, he threatened to challenge the property transfer in court. I was both relieved and appalled when I left his place. I just know that I made the proper choice every time I learned something new after that. Laura called me and told me that ever since my grandfather made the gift announcement, Dad has been obsessed with the lake house, he and Aaron apparently thought. I would allow them to use it for weekend fishing excursions since we were family, because of Dad's disparaging remarks about my grandfather and me. I've made the decision to have my attorney write him a cease and desist letter. In order to defend himself against Dad's untrue statements on his mental health, my grandfather is also investigating his legal alternatives. Aaron has been tweeting passive-aggressively about fake family members and gold diggers on social media, but he hasn't spoken to me directly. He and anyone who backs his and Dad's story have been blocked by me. I'm concentrating on getting settled in our new house with Mike and attempting to put all of this turmoil behind us right now. But I'll give you another update if anything important occurs. Update 3. Finding peace. This will be my last update, as I've finally found a solution that brings me peace. In light of the turmoil and revelations of the last few months, I've decided to stop communicating with my dad and his side of the family entirely, as I mentioned in my previous post. Dad did attempt to challenge the transfer of the lake house. For the last 3 months, it's been a wild ride. He launched a lawsuit arguing that he ought to have some influence on my grandfather's property choices because he is my father. After my grandfather produced copious records attesting to his mental capacity and his explicit desire to transfer the land to Mike and me, his attorney finally abandoned the case. When Dad lost the court battle, his response was explosive. When he arrived at my place of employment, he created such a commotion that my employer had to bar him from the building. He yelled that I had stolen his retirement dream, implying that he and Aaron had intended to use the lake house as a fishing hideaway. Our restraining order documentation now includes the security footage of his outburst. Laura contacted me last week to inform me that following the completion of the divorce, she would be relocating to a different state. She thanked me for giving her the confidence to go and apologized once more for not realizing Dad's manipulation sooner. Even though we're not close, I admire her for finally confronting Dad's actions. The extended family is mainly divided into 2 groups: those who have seen through Dad's lies and those who still believe them. It seems quite liberating to have lost contact with some relatives. They're the only family I need, and the people that matter have stayed. I'm getting used to living in a lake house with Mike. I occasionally catch myself feeling depressed about Dad's situation. But then I recall all the spreadsheets, the prearranged arguments, the deception, and the manipulation. When he decided Aaron was the only child worth his time and effort, I lost him years ago, so I know I'm not losing a parent. In times of self-doubt, your messages and remarks enabled me to maintain my position. Walking away from toxic family members, including parents, might be the healthiest course of action sometimes. The hardest option is the correct one. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.